Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Welcome to Money in the Morning, aka Economic Elevation, aka Financial Consciousness. My name is Dr. Boyce Watkins. I hope everybody's having a good day. In case you are new, Money in the Morning is where we get together every morning for practice, finance practice. You went to basketball practice, you went to football practice, some of y'all went to cheerleading practice. Well, I believe that everybody should go to financial practice because habits are created from repetition, and our goal is to form the habit of being wealthy, smart, and prepared for the future and successful. So if you agree with that, put a B1 in the chat. B1 means black first. Black first means we put our people first. And also, we want our people to be excellent. So put a B1 in the chat. If any of this resonates with you, if any of this makes sense with you, we must start every day off with intentionality and prepare ourselves to be great. All right. So, anyway, let's jump into this. All right. So, I want to I just had a long trip back from Atlanta yesterday, and now we're getting ready for a family reunion and some other stuff, and I'm preparing for the semester at Morehouse and all that stuff. So I had a great time down there. So many wonderful people that I met. But anyway, I want to ask you all a question. There was a study that came out that says that poverty can cause mental illness. Do you agree with that? What do you all think? Do you all think that poverty can cause mental illness? Do you think the stress from poverty can cause people to kind of lose their mind a little bit? Anybody? What do y'all think? Do you think that that's credible? Does that make sense to you? Does that resonate? Has anybody ever gone crazy because of financial stress or felt like you were just losing your freaking mind? Yeah, well, apparently they finally have documented the obvious, and I'm sure there have been studies on this before, but I'm really glad that they're talking about this because there's always this question. People always say, they say money can't make you happy or money can't buy happiness. And I always say, well, being broke can definitely piss you off. Like, being broke can make you real unhappy and real stressed out. So I don't know. I may, finding happiness, maybe that's complex. Maybe you need yoga. Maybe you need Jesus. I don't know. But I do know that if you are walking around broke, empty pockets in a capitalist society, you're gonna find your way to unhappiness. There's a good chance of that. It's really hard to be happy when the biggest thing that you need in the moment is a day off, and you can't even take the day off because your boss said get your butt out of bed and you need to be here by 9 o'clock and do what I tell you to do. All right, so like let's get that right. Money ain't gonna do everything for you, but money's gonna do something for you. And anybody who's running around talking about, well, money can't buy happiness, money's evil, money's bad. Well, those are broke. Those are what you call broke people, and broken people, and you should not, if you want to be the opposite of broke, don't be getting advice from broken people. Just bless them and release them, forgive them for they know not what they do. All right, now very quickly, I want to acknowledge in B1 Village, the B1 elites. These are the people that have contributed the most in our community conversations that happen after class, where we're forming wealth groups and people are connecting with each other. There's someone named Catherine who's actually ranked number one. She's the number one draft pick right now. Catherine, if you're in the chat, just say something because Catherine's killing it. I don't see her last name, so I just got to call her Catherine or Super Cat. But she's at the top, and then James is number two. James is probably James Keller. James Keller is the ultimate OG. He's like the LeBron James of the B1 space. And Janelle Palmer, Errol Seamangal, and Dwayne Williams. These are the top five. These are the Fab Five right now on B1 Village, and you're jumping in, and you get points by talking to other people, connecting with others, because we know from Dr. George Fraser that relationships are a key to wealth, that connecting with others, talking to others, that's the best way for you to get out of your shell and put yourself in a position where you can create opportunities or get access to opportunities. So those of you that want to jump into B1 Village, just go to b1village.com. There's a small monthly fee, and just to make it worth your while, what I'm going to do is this week I'm going to do a drop in B1 Village where everybody who's in B1 Village can have free access to every single recording of every training that we've ever done in Money in the Morning. And if you know, we don't drop some diamonds up in here. Like literally, this is better than any finance class you'll ever take at the college level. I kid you not. I know my stuff, right? And then I know when I'm doing my best, and I've done my best in here in terms of really, really helping us to really flesh out what financial consciousness looks like, the difference between wealthy people and broke people, and all the different ways that economic mechanics work in society. And I just think I'm fun to talk to. I don't know. Yeah, I I like hanging out with Boyce because he sometimes he be making me laugh. He's like a really funny guy, and so but he's not trying to be funny. He's just weird. But weird people are hilarious. So anyway, with that said, just as an added bonus, anybody in B1 Village, I will do a drop, and you will have free access. It's probably worth about $300, so you have free access to all of the Money in the Morning recordings. I'm going to give you a coupon. You can go in there and you can share it with your family, with your cousin, them, your baby mama, your children, definitely the children, because the kids need to hear this stuff, right? This is a difference maker. Think about how little people told you about wealth when you were a child and how that harmed you, right? So anyway, you can go sign up at b1village.com. You have to sign the B1 contract before you get in, though, and that's just a set of rules in terms of how we're going to engage with each other. We engage with love. I want you to engage with productivity. Don't go in there spamming, scamming, lying. When they say where my scamming ass, blah blah's at, they ain't in B1 Village. You are not welcome there. And if we catch you up in there scamming, we have people that have been promoted. If you contribute enough, we'll promote you to be a moderator and all that. You can go in and report those people and get them out of there. So that's b1village.com if you want to hang out after class. All right, now let's go through this study about money causing people to lose their freaking mind, which y'all knew this. You already knew this, right? But let me give you some stats on this just so you can really nail it down and understand how important financial health is to your mental health. In fact, financial health is also important to your physical health. Financial health is important to your relationship health. But then relationship health is important to your financial health. But then your physical health is connected to your mental health, which is connected to your financial health, which is connected to your relation. Oh my God, do you see the pattern emerging? Is there a pattern? Do we see? Is there a pattern here? What do you think? Do you think that maybe your physical health, mental health, relationship health, and financial health are all connected? What do y'all think? What do you think about that? That maybe the person who went and invested in the therapy is now better at business because it's hard to do business with a crazy person. I've tried it. Kanye West and I were on the phone for a while. He refused the therapy. It was horrible talking to him. It was very difficult. Um, I think Ice Cube probably got therapy though, because I talked to him for a long time and he made sense to me. Kanye didn't make sense to me. I said, you need to talk to Ice Cube. He can help you. He should mentor you. Y'all rappers and stuff. Anyway, so think about this. The person who gets the therapy is going to be a better business person. They're going to make better relationship choices. They're going to have more consciousness and awareness, self-awareness to be able to make good decisions in life. And they're going to you start winning. Start winning, right? So these things are all connected. So here is where this is why we don't want, and I have to, before I state these stats, I want us to lay out the intentionality behind it and help us understand why this matters, right? So let's just do some intentionality here. Give me a yes in the chat if you don't want your children to have their mental health disrupted because they're stressing out over money when they get older. Give me a yes if you don't want your grandkids, to be having to go sell ass on the internet to make ends meet. Like, give me a yes if you don't want your son out here scamming and shooting people and robbing banks and taking penitentiary chances just to get money. Or give me a yes if you don't want your child to have to go to work every day and have a racist boss mistreat them and disrespect them and humiliate them every day and them have to walk back into the disrespect because they can't pay the bills, right? So I laid this out because I need us to know why we're doing this. This is not just how us getting rich to buy Lamborghinis. This is about protection, safety, right? So here are some compelling stats that I think will help you to understand how connected your financial health is to your mental health. Number one, the CDC did an analysis that found that depression was about 3 times higher for poor people. That literally, the prevalence of depression was 22% among people living below 100% of the federal poverty level, compared with just 7.4% among those whose family incomes are at 400% of the poverty level. So basically, people that have more money and can live a soft life, surprise, surprise, are actually happier and less likely to be sad all the time. I think that makes sense. Financial strain also predicts mental illness even better than income alone. So this is interesting. So a lot of times we think it's just the income, but it's not just the income. It's really the financial stress that's the culprit. So make sure we distinguish those two. There are lots of people that make a lot of money who have a lot of financial distress. My wife sent me a video about a man who took his own life He was a white guy. He wasn't black. And he took his life, but the thing was he was very wealthy. They had a big house in the Hamptons, and him and his wife would spend $30,000 on vacations. So they weren't poor, but he was under financial stress because of debt and things like that, right? So that idea of living below your means is a way of taking the financial and the psychological pressure off of you. And so that skill set, your parents giving you that skill set early, if you're talking about the kids, is just incredibly valuable. And then us and sort of really thinking about what that means makes a difference. So basically, a landmark British cohort study found that people experiencing severe financial strain had a 57% higher risk of developing a common mental disorder and an 86% higher risk of remaining mentally ill over time. 86%. They had an 86% 6% higher probability of maintaining that mental illness, which is really heavy. The authors concluded that the financial stress was a strong predictor of psychiatric problems. It was stronger than just poverty. Okay, so that's what's interesting, right? What this also says is that a person can be poor and happy. See, this is big. Oh my goodness, this is so big. Let's stick on this point. A lot of people believe that financial freedom means that you're rich. A lot of people think that. Just to be clear, high income and financial freedom are not they're cousins. They're connected, but they ain't the same. It's like me and some of my cousins. You know, you got cousins. You're like, okay, we're related by blood. We look alike, but I'm not like you. That's kind of what financial freedom and high income are. High income's like, yeah, man, we the same. Me and you, we financially free, just like you. No, you're not. You're not. No, financial freedom is freedom from financial constraints. Like financial freedom is freedom from money kind of controlling your life. You don't have to be rich to be in that position. There are plenty of people who have very little money who are incredibly financially free. If you talk, you ever talk to like a poor person who can't be bought? You ever see somebody who maybe they got a regular job and you say, hey, I'll give you a Gucci bag and $1 million if you'll go and sell your soul to the devil, and they're like, nah, that's okay. And you're right, or you say, hey man, like let's go hit this lick. You working at Burger King, you a sucker. You should be out here with us making this street money. And they're like, nah, that's all right. That's what financial freedom looks like. Financial freedom is where you are. It's a consciousness. It's a multi-dimensional way of viewing the world that says money is not the primary predictor of how I make decisions. See, I wish BET would gain some of that. BET don't ain't got that. I would challenge the BET executives and say, why are you training black children to go out and be killers and whores? And they would say, well, because it makes so much money. That's not that's not very thoughtful. That's not very conscious. That's literally a one-dimensional capitalist slash racist way of viewing the world. That you're walking right into the grips of white supremacy, because if money is the only criteria on which you make decisions, and white men in America possess the most money, then that means you can be purchased by, your oppressor knows exactly how to dial up your number. And so really, financial freedom is where that's something you can give children and to yourself without having to give them any money. So make sure that that's clear. Your inheritance isn't just the money. Your inheritance is your values. Your inheritance is your work ethic. Your inheritance is your self-confidence. Your inheritance is your knowledge of self, right? Your inheritance is all the wisdom that you're going to give them, because a person who has all these things is a person that doesn't just make a decision just because of the money, because they see all the other factors that come into that decision. So if someone says, hey, okay, you're at this job and you've been here for 5 years and you're making 70,000 a year, we'll give you 95,000 to take this other job that's going to stress you out, take you away from your family, make you miserable, and treat you like a nigga. Excuse my French, didn't mean to do that. Then that person's going to say, no, I'll pass on that. That is financial freedom. That is financial freedom. And the thing about it, what will drive the financial freedom, in my view, is a couple of things. One is the consciousness, just kind of saying, you're giving me $25,000, but you're purchasing so many other things that are much more valuable than money. Give me a yes or no. Yes or no. Would you let someone purchase your mental health for $25,000 a year? Yes or no? Would you let somebody give you $25,000, and in exchange you would get cancer, diabetes, stroke, and heart disease? Would that be a good deal for you? But what if it was $50,000 and they said, "We're going to give you $50,000, but your relationship with your spouse and your children is going to deteriorate because you'll never see each other because you'll be at work all the time. But you have an extra $50,000. You can flex on the gram. You can get you that Mercedes you've been wanting. You get to be, the director of widget construction at XYZ Corporation. You get to feel like you get to feel like a mighty proud, high and mighty Negro. You get to feel important, right? Well, that's a financially free person can say that doesn't pass my smell test. It's a level of discernment, and what drives the financial freedom isn't just a consciousness and awareness, but it also is driven by what you might call in finance, we call this satiation. Satiation is where you got to the point where you have enough. This is the reason why I love my friend John Hope Bryant, and he wrote a book about capitalism. And I haven't read his book yet, but I assume he's explaining capitalism in a healthy way, because the problem with unhealthy capitalism, you have to distinguish the two. It's almost like hip hop. You have to distinguish between healthy hip hop and toxic hip hop, right? So the problem with extreme capitalism is that it kind of creates these really unhealthy outcomes. Like, extreme capitalism doesn't know the meaning of the word enough. There is no, if you look at capitalism at its core, when it's practiced in its most extreme form, you see greed, you see corruption, you see, like you literally are training people to step over homeless people on their way to their $100 million a year company and not even care, not even give a damn. They were using statements in the 1980s that were very disturbing, like greed is good. Gordon Gekko, it was a star in this movie called Wall Street that came out in the 80s with Charlie Sheen. It was a great movie, but it was really disturbing in the sense that it started getting America on this pathway of believing that money kind of runs everything and money should be the most important thing. That's part of what, in my view, led to what you have right now, which is a complete mess on Capitol Hill, because your politicians, the money drives everything. So, what I would say is that financial freedom can be driven by you saying, we got enough. I don't really need to stay in a 5-star hotel every time I travel. I can do a 4-star. I don't need three Mercedes Benzes that cost $100,000 each. I've got a Lexus that was 50,000, and I'm feeling pretty fancy with that. It means you saying I don't need to keep up with the Joneses because the Joneses are in debt. I don't want to be in debt, so I'll never be as flashy as the Joneses, and I'm okay with that. See, that's mental health kicking in right there. That's self-esteem kicking in. These are things that money can't buy, but these are things that will save you lots of money. So a person with good self-esteem says, I don't really need to go borrow $50,000 just so I can keep up with you, because who is you anyway? Why am I trying to keep up with you? Why am I trying to match you? Like, what is that doing for me that a therapist could probably unravel, for a little bit of change to help me understand, like, this is not a healthy way to live. This is not an equilibrium. This is not balance. So financial freedom, I have seen so many people who are financially free who have very low incomes. My grandmother was one of them. She's our Panther, by the way. If you don't know, our Panther in the Black Business School. When you see me, you'll see this Panther a lot. This Panther is my grandmother. That I got to bring my grandma with me. She's my ancestral spiritual warrior, and I got people fighting for me on the other side. And so, damn it, boys, God, I can't talk about my grandmother without getting choked up. Stop it! You sound like a Lord. Okay, let's get back to it. I'm sorry. I can't help. I love my grandma. I love my grandma. I love my mama. I just can't. And you would think years later, she died in 2012. I mean, come on, man. Anyway, I don't know if everybody else got that. It's like something about losing grandma and mama. You never get over that. Anyway, so let's get serious here. I'm gonna use my deep voice again, so you don't think I'm a punk. But one thing that my grandma did in terms of financial freedom that was really impressive was she never made more than $22,000 a year. But she never had financial problems, and she didn't even have any help. She didn't have a husband or anything, and she just always had money. And if you circle back on that and you analyze, what you found was that there were values that she carried that were somewhat conservative values, not in a political sense. I'm not talking about Democrat, Republican. I'm talking about just, like if you get an opportunity, you don't waste it. If you get some money, you don't throw it away on silly stuff. You don't get caught up in foolishness. She liked to use that word foolishness, and that really goes a long way. Those basic ideas can really help you have a certain type of financial. She knew how to say no. We try to sell her stuff. She wasn't gonna buy it if it was silly. And really these are things that if you look at these are probably the most significant aspects of your financial education that there are. Economics is very cultural. And I speak about that a lot in my book, The 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power. If you haven't picked up a copy, feel free to go to drboycebooks.com. I'll sign it and send it to your house. And you may want to order them soon because when I start going down to Atlanta, I won't be able to sign as many because they're all in Chicago. So anyway, drboycebooks.com is where my book is if you want to get a copy. All right, so here's a couple more things. There was a systematic review of 115 studies. They found between a 73% and 79% of the studies reported a significant positive relation between poverty and common mental disorders such as anxiety and depression. Now, my wife is a therapist, and she says that anxiety and depression are very high in the Black community and that they tend to sort of run together like Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan. Anxiety and depression are kind of like the Jordan and Pippen of mental health issues. They tend to be connected. And so sort of thinking about your financial decisions directly impacts that area as well. What else? Low savings can dramatically increase depression risk. Americans are not trained to save. Well, I remember I learned that first when I was doing my stint with the Center for European Economic Research in Mannheim, Germany. I was in Germany, and my German colleague came in and he showed me data. And he was freaked out. He said, Americans are crazy when it comes to money. He didn't say black people. He said Americans. And he said, basically in Germany, he said, we pay more in taxes than you do. We make less money than you do, but we save 5 times more than you do. And that's when I went on that journey. And I said, okay, I get it. Americans are encouraged not to save. You're encouraged not to believe in maintaining your own financial security. You're trained to believe that the government will give you financial security. You're trained to believe that the corporation will give you financial security. You're not trained to believe that you should give your own financial security. You're not trained to believe that your family should finance your financial security. You're trained to believe in these institutions, and we know these institutions have not shown up for us the way that they should. And what is interesting is that when a person does have that high income, and they feel like they're doing well because they have a high income, they're really in an extremely risky position because somebody could just strip away your financial security and your mental health by taking your job away. Or they cut their DEI program and then you're cooked and you don't know what to do. Well, I will just say that if you backpedal, the question then becomes, were you ever in an environment where you were trained directly to understand that the same way you might tithe 10% to your pastor, you should tithe 10% to your savings account, right? The same way you pay your bills on time every month, you should be paying your investment portfolio every month. Because what you're doing is you're building structure around your financial situation. In fact, ideally speaking, if you're looking for a benchmark that you can apply to your family, a benchmark you should give to your children, you should really tell your kids that with consistent investing and minimizing debt, you should be able to be in a position where you could quit your job at 40 and never have to work again. Well, we're literally at 40. You might go to work because you want to, but you won't go to work because you have to. That seems like an impossibly high standard. How many of you heard that and said, that sounds tough? Or how many of you see somebody when they say, oh, I retired at 40? It's like, oh my God, that's so amazing, right? Like I think there's a whole movement around it. Something financial, something retire early. I forgot what the I stands for. Y'all got to remind me. It's a movement. I like it. I think it's good. It's good, but it's financial independence, retire early. I like it, but it's not the best you can do. It's not the gold standard. It's white excellence maybe, but it ain't black excellence. It ain't it's not B1 excellence. Because here's the deal. The fire movement, what I don't like about it is that it's almost like a type of financial Spartanism. Have you ever heard about the Spartans? The Spartans were these soldiers that would like they would eat dirt and like live like minimally and torture themselves so they could be the best soldiers ever. And that like in order to do that, you had to go like when you were 9, you had to go fight a lion or something. Right? Like it's a little too painful. And the thing about it is about financial security that's interesting is that it should not be a painful process. It doesn't, like it doesn't mean it's like if you're losing weight, that doesn't mean that you can only eat lettuce and water. Like you can still enjoy good food. You just have to have a little bit of consciousness and awareness around the food that you eat and have an exercise regimen and all these other things. Like I really believe that you can have your heaven on earth. I think that because here's the thing, when you dedicate everything to some big goal that's 20 years away, it's hard to stay motivated for that, number one. And then number two, there's a lot of pain that goes into achieving your final objective. So you're not enjoying the process. You're suffering through the process so you can hopefully enjoy the end of the process. Which now fire is a little bit better than retirement. Retirement is the way they describe it is like the real mind puck. I'm gonna say mind puck because you know what I'm thinking here. Retirement sucks a little because they're like you're telling the 22-year-old, yeah, max out your 401k and invest consistently, and then when you're really really old, you can quit your job and stay home. But until then, for the next 40 years, you're gonna have to go to a job and save money and all these other things. I don't think that that's a very appealing message for a 22-year-old. I don't think that would have worked for me. So let me reframe those things in a way that might hopefully help give you a different perspective. So, retire early. How do I retire at 40? Well, number one, if you have parents that love you, it's very easy to do. We've talked about things like the $5 a day plan and the 5-year pledge. The 5-year pledge, in case you don't know, is where I've said, okay, the average used car note in America is $550. If a person just randomly throws $550 into the S&P 500 with no stock picking ability whatsoever, after 5 years, you have roughly 35,000. After 10 years, you have about 100,000. After 20 years, you're about a quarter million or more. 30 years, you're approaching $1 million. Anybody that's got close to $1 million in the bank doesn't have to work. So your child doesn't retire at 40. They actually can retire probably at 25, maybe even 20 if they're good with money. Really, I'm not saying they would retire because you're 20. You gotta find something to do. But really, most people that have, tell me if you agree. I think most people that have $300,000 in the bank don't actually have to go to work. I'm not saying they shouldn't. You got to find some other way to keep things going, making money or whatever. But you can sell stock options, all kinds of stuff, right? But you're in a good shape. You're in better shape than most Americans. Would you agree? Would you agree with that, right? So what that says is that if if we viewed financial preparation of children the same way we view feeding our kids, like it's my job as a parent to feed you and protect you, but then also my job is to go ahead and start making these investments and building the family capital structure so that you are sustained long term. Then that solves that problem. It's very easy to do, and you don't even have to. And remember, with wealth, building financial security, it's not like you're sacrificing for another person. Everybody acts like wealth is something where either I'm doing well or you're doing well. Either I'm having a happy life or I'm sacrificing for my children. No, your children are a part of you, and you can, by building wealth for yourself and for the family, you're building wealth for everybody. Like if I cook a lot of food, that doesn't mean I starve while you eat. If I buy a car, that doesn't mean I walk while you drive. The car is something we can both use. Maybe when you're younger, I'm using the car more than you, but then I take care of the car so I can pass it to you. Do you understand? You got to think about wealth that way. Don't think about wealth as like, well, if I got to go through hell and go through the fire movement, put my face in the fire and burn my toes off and just so my kids can have a good life. No. Or I want to have a good life in the future. So therefore I got to be miserable for 20 years. No. You can be very, very happy and still build wealth. All that's required is balance. That's it. That's it. So the problem in America is not so much um, a lack of access to knowledge and resources as much as it's a matter of a lack of balance. It really reminds me of college. I made straight A's in college for the most part, most of the time. Sometimes, every now and then, I got a bad grade, but for the most part, I did pretty well, and I pretty much dominated the other black students. Like my GPA was here; they were all here. When they had like student of the year type stuff, there was no competition. I was the academic Michael Jordan of my campus. I can honestly say that. And people thought that I was either a genius or that I was just an extreme workaholic. Now, I've always worked hard for sure. And I don't know, maybe I am a little bit smart. I have no idea. But I can say I knew smarter people who just maybe struggled because they had no balance. The people that I knew who flunked out of college, usually it wasn't like they flunked out because they were bad people. They would flunk out because they did no studying at all. And all I would do was just I was level. I would study every day, 6 days a week, pretty much for a few hours a day, consistently. If I had a test in 3 weeks, I'd start preparing for the test 3 weeks early, right? Preparation, that was the key to success. And they would try to learn a month's worth of stuff in 2 days. And I'll be like, well, how the hell you think you're going to pass the test when you're trying to learn everything in 2 days? That's how I feel about retirement and things like that, or financial security. You live in a world where people think it makes sense to try to catch up on retirement when you 5 years away. I'm not saying, and I get it. I know some of that might hit close to home because some of us might be in that spot. That don't. Do you know the difference between saving and investing consistently over a 30 or 40 year period versus trying to do 40 years of savings and investing in 5 years? It's really hard, really hard. Think of it like driving a car. If I get in my car and I'm going 50 miles an hour and I leave 4 days before you, and you get in a Lamborghini and you go 100 miles an hour and you think you're going to catch up with me in 24 hours, you're not. You're not. I'm so far ahead that you won't catch up, right? So this is how investing works. This is works. This is how compounding works. So balance really is that key. Just doing a little bit every day, a little bit every month, every week, whatever your number is. And so let's go back. Let's compare. So retirement versus the fire thing. Again, very easy for a child to be in a position where if they wanted to quit their job at 25 or 30 and they have parents who love them, it's not hard to do. I talked to, Jedediah was his name. Yesterday, I talked about the B1 baby, Keisha's baby, and I couldn't remember her husband's name, and I felt so terrible. I texted him, I said, man, I forgot your name. I'm so sorry. I'm terrible with names. I feel like an idiot. So his name was Jedediah, and I like Jedediah. And so Keisha and Jedediah were the two that met at the All Black National Convention, and they're having the second. So they had the first B1 baby. So I guess this one could be the B2 baby or the B1A baby or B1 hyphen. I don't the B1 part two. I don't know. Anyway, so with Jedediah, what I would say to him is I'd say, okay, so you got this B1 baby coming in. We don't raise B1 babies to be scrubs. We don't raise our B1 babies to be out here in the struggle. We don't raise the B1 babies to be out here getting oppressed. We raise our B1 babies to be competitive. We raise our B1 babies to be intelligent. We raise our B1 babies to be financially secure and confident and to know who the heck they are. So I would say to him, I'd say, okay, so you're doing the 5 year plan for your family, not just for the baby, but for your family. So you're sending $500 a month to pay the car note. You do $500 a month toward the investment account. And then by the time the kids hit adulthood, they are off and running. They are starting the race with a running start. And therefore this is 100. This is not a fire movement. This is better than fire. So maybe if that's fire, this is like a nuclear bomb. Your kids are out there, they really are the bomb, and they're ready to go out here and really get some stuff done. And it just takes that preparation. Another thing that in my view you may want to consider is that if you're trying to do these things yourself and trying to sort of get ahead in terms of long-term financial security, I would think about retirement not so much as something that you benefit from when you get old. Remember, as you're building that fund that's going to maintain you in old age, that money doesn't grow overnight. It grows slowly over time. So what happens is that if you're going to have, say, a $500,000 by the time you're 65, well, that means when you're 30 and 40 and 50, you're going to have a certain amount of money in your account that you can borrow against. That allows you to do things that rich people do, like buy, borrow, and die, where you just borrow against the asset that you have. Whenever you need money, whenever you need a loan, you just go to the bank of self and go borrow against this portfolio that you have. Or maybe one thing I did, for example, with our family is we bought 100 shares of a Micron stock. 100 shares of Micron stock costs about $89,000. I think I put up about 50,000 because I used margin to get it. And so then what I did was I took the Micron stock and I wanted to pay off a credit card. So I sold a long-term deep out of the money call option, which if you know about options, you know what I'm talking about. And I immediately got $20,000 and I took the $20,000 and paid off the credit card. right? And so when you have assets, you have something you can work with. You can go out there and you can get what you need. It's like having a garden in the backyard and some crops growing over here and some pigs and chickens over there. And whenever you want to eat, you just go out there and you say, okay, let's go get a couple chickens and get some fruit and get some vegetables out of the garden, and we're going to make ourselves a meal. Cooking your own financial meal is safer and better and healthier than always going out to eat at a restaurant, which is going to be expensive and unhealthy, and you don't know what they're putting in your food. It's even better than going to the grocery store. Do you understand? So, part of success financially is security overall, financial security for the individual. Links to security for a community. A lot of it's linked to something we've talked about before called vertical integration. Vertical integration means you're controlling every part of your process. You're not outsourcing things that shouldn't be outsourced. There's certain things that shouldn't be outsourced. Your financial security should not be outsourced to the government. It should not be outsourced to corporate America. Your black financial security should not be outsourced to the white people who probably don't care that much about you. And the truth of the matter is the fact that they don't care about you, I don't know if that makes them bad people, because I don't know of any community that leans on another community to provide their financial security. I've never heard a Chinese person say, "Well, we'll get to eat if the Arabs decide if we get to eat." I've never heard a Greek person say, "Well, if the Chinese people, will come off this money and give us some opportunities, we'll be okay." I don't see that. I don't see that when I go to Greek town and Chinatown and everything else, right? And so, really, generally speaking, this is the slave culture that we have to really get away from, because slavery never died. Slavery exists in the corporate plantation. It also exists in the prison systems. And the thing about slavery is that slavery really pretty much is represented by a lack of freedom, a lack of choice, a lack of options. When you have no options, then to some extent, some would say that you are a slave. So financial insecurity in a capitalist society definitely leads to slavery. And slavery will create all these other problems like exploitation and various forms of harm. And so it really is a code red, like mission critical assignment for us to make sure that we don't pass that generational virus and that generational toxin onto our children. We cannot, it is absolutely toxic to train our children to financially depend on other communities to get what they need. That's something that I believe we should not do. Now, one thing I want to mention really quick is you guys know the All Black National Convention is going to happen in Jersey City. In the weekend of October 16th. And so if you want to get discounts on passes this week up until Saturday, they are 30% off. That's every pass, every vendor pass, anything you want to get on the site, 30% off. So use the code, what's the code word that we use? What was it? Legacy. So if you use the code word legacy, you can get 30% off. Somebody write that down. Remember that, because I'm bad with names and words and I'll forget stuff. So yeah, the code word is legacy. And so if you go to allblacknationalconvention.com, you can do that. Now, one thing that we're still working on is the children's track. We have a business school for children where we train the kids all day, Black Millionaires of Tomorrow. That is full right now. Right now, that is full. The team is working to see if we can get more space in the hotel to do more. But that, you guys are committed to educating your kids, and I have so much respect for you for that. So now our logistical challenge is we're trying to create more space to accommodate more kids, and so that's another thing that we're working on. So and we may even do a shout out for those of you that are good with working with kids. Of course, we got to vet you and stuff, so you have to show your credentials. But that's something we may do. Also, in fact, actually, Tierra Williams with Fly Nubian Money, which is a platform where smart Black women like Dr. Lene Javette and Constance Carter and Shaleigh Camilo hop in and talk about wealth and things like that. They're looking for women that want to be hosts on that platform, and so in case you don't know, they go live three. It was 5 times a week. I think they're doing about 3 times a week now, and they cover all kinds of financial topics. Right, so it's a great place for really smart, classy women, because we have plenty of them. We have an oversupply. Yeah, we have an oversupply of Black women that are doing amazing things, and I wanted to mention that as just something for those of you that want to expand your profile, get out there, have people see you. The channel has about 500,000 subscribers, and so if you want to be a part of that, I'll text out the link. In fact, I'll do two things. I'll put it in B1 Village, but I'll also text it out on the text list. Text the word morning to the number 87948 if you want to be on the text list. Text morning to 87948. All right. Now, let me show you something really quick. Latoya says she loves Fly Nubian Queen. Yeah, but and another thing too is if you just want to listen and connect with the ladies and see what they're doing, text the word Queens to that same number 87948. And also I would encourage the men to participate as well. Only women are teaching because I just really among others, I wasn't the only one who's a part of this, but I really feel like our community doesn't listen to Black women enough, and when I say that, I mean, maybe if you're talking about like rappers and stuff, like Cardi B's and all that, yeah, but or politicians, but I really think that there's like these amazing rank and file women who are doing amazing things that people don't know about. Like if you say name the most prominent Black attorney in America, somebody might say Ben Crump, or before they would have said Johnny Cochran. Who's the most prominent Black female attorney in America? Can anybody name her? Who's the most prominent Black female physician in America? Can anybody name that person? No, you can't. And I just think that that's interesting. I don't know why that happens. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of things that we should do for the brothers too. That's why I want to go to Morehouse. Black men, we deserve respect. You got so many men out here that are not into silly stuff, that are very serious men, and that's important. But I also think the same thing is true for women. And the goal, again, with balance, is to try to explore all those conversations. And because you can't talk about Black wealth without talking about Black culture, because the culture, I believe, blocks the wealth. It really blocks a lot of the wealth. Now, somebody says Letitia James. Okay, so she might count. Yeah, she is in New York, and she's the Attorney General, something like that. I think that one of the other things too that I am curious about is I'm always looking for Black people who are doing well and care about the community, who are not overly affiliated with a political party. Like I mean, if you really want to name like the most popular Black women, you could name somebody like Letitia James, who's aligned heavily with the Democrats, and Kamala Harris. On the conservative side, I could go to Candace Owens and stuff like that. And those people are fine. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. But I would just say from what I have seen, the greatest progress Black people have made is when Black people represent Black people, right? When you really are just 10 toes down for the Black community, where Black is the first word that comes out of your mouth, and you're doing it without regard to being controlled and managed by a political party, or that no matter what you say, you're not concerned about making sure that you don't upset your political party, right? Like there's certain things, like if you're too Democratic, there's certain things you can't say and still be a Democrat. If you're too Republican, there's certain things you can't say and still be a Republican. I believe you should be free. I think that you should be able to say whatever you want to say, and as long as Black families and Black children are at the top of the priorities, Black wealth and mental and physical health, things like that, are at the top of the priority list, then I want to hear what you got to say. I don't care what your political party is. And so when you get to the point where you're saying, well, you can't listen to that person because they're a Republican, I'm gonna say, no, that's you're impeding on my freedom. You're not gonna do that to me. I'm not letting you do that. Or don't listen to the Democrats because blah blah. No, 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 no. Some of the ideas actually make sense. And I think that the shenanigans distract us so much that we don't have time to focus on ourselves. That's what I'm saying, right? It's it's like a woman choosing, is a nice guy, but he beats her up. The other guy it doesn't beat her up, but he tries to pimp her on the street, and she's choosing between the pimp and the abuser, and maybe she needs to focus on herself, right? And maybe then if you focus on yourself, then the pimp and the abuser will start to treat you better because you let them know that you got options, right? And you get the best out of people as opposed to the worst. In fact, I really believe in life. People always talk about, good people and bad people, or a good man and a bad man, or a good woman and a bad woman. I don't believe I believe everybody has good and bad in them. And the question is, what can you get out of them, right? What can you pull out of them, right? I have seen terrible men treat a woman like royalty. Maybe it's because the woman set a standard. Maybe it's because she was the one that he really wanted. Maybe I don't know what it is, but I've seen that. I've seen women who were not nice people really kiss the butt of a man, like really be all over a man because the man had something that she desired, right? And or maybe he approached her a certain way, right? So I kind of feel like generally, like, or even I'll give you another example. I'll even use myself just to be honest. I don't want to embarrass myself, but I dated before I met my wife, and I don't think I was ever a bad person. I was raised to respect women, but there would probably be women who knew me in the past who would say, wow, I can't believe Boyce is doing all this stuff for her, right? He never did those things for me. He never got on one knee and proposed to me in front of 100,000 people. Well, it's because you ain't Alicia. You ain't my wife. I don't dislike you. I'm sorry. It was great, but there's levels to this shit. In everything. There's levels to everything, right? And so, really, I would say if you talk about, for example, playing the wealth game, the politics game, all these other things, I believe that as the Black community strengthens itself and becomes wiser and just more committed to our strength and liberation, wherever the answers lie, I guarantee you that all the political parties will have a greater degree of respect for Black people. I'm absolutely convinced that both sides don't respect the Black community as a group of people that are intelligent, disciplined, and truly committed to our own elevation and survival. Because if we were, for example, we would be absolutely outraged by the fact that 70% of our kids can't read at grade level. That would be we'd be marching in the streets. We'd be fighting people over that. We'd be yanking our kids out of these schools, like almost as if you were sending them to the Epstein School of Mathematics, right? We would get our kids up out of there. Um, our wealth level, if we were really committed to raising our wealth, then we would have just systematic, just mass creation of entrepreneurs and investors to make sure we alleviate that issue. I just don't know if people view us in that way. And I was talking to a guy last night. I like this guy. Like, it was crazy. I was sitting on an airplane coming home from Atlanta, and there was a guy sitting next to me, and he was about to sit on his laptop. And I said, "Whoa, hey man, your laptop's on your seat, so so don't do that, right?" But the laptop, he had a better laptop than me, so he could have sat on it. It would have been okay. But we started talking, and his name was Gene Biddle, and or Dibble. I think it was Dibble. Yeah, that's it. Anyway, we talked for 2.5 hours, and let me tell you, this guy, he had just gone to Tuskegee to do some work, and it was like economic impact stuff. And I was like, "Oh, we got a kid that goes to Tuskegee. Tell me, what'd you do there?" And we started talking about Booker T. Washington, and I was so fascinated by what he had to say that I want to actually bring him to class because he went to Duke University, and so he's very smart, and he's a little older than me. He's in his 60s, and he just really had a lot of good perspectives. So a few things he told me was he mentioned that I don't want to say I don't want to tell the story wrong, but he said that Booker T, when he was building that school, when he wanted to build an institution for his people that's going to be around 100 years or 200 years after he's gone, they didn't have enough money for bricks and things like that. And so Gene said that his grandfather was an architect, and he got with W.E.B. Sorry, not W. I'm sorry, Booker T, and he agreed to help him build these buildings, even though they didn't have the money to do it. And then what they did, because they understood wealth so well, is they saw the value of the students. So because they could not afford bricks for the buildings, they had the students. They taught the students how to make bricks. So that was to me genius in that these Black men and women as well came together and collaborated and found the wealth. They said, we ain't got the money to buy bricks, but we got all these students who can provide labor. Labor is a form of wealth. So they trained the students to make bricks for the buildings. Many of those buildings are standing today, educating thousands of kids. 100 years after this man died, tell me that's not amazing. Tell me that's not powerful. And he kept going. He kept telling me more stuff about George Washington Carver, and because he was down at Tuskegee, and how Henry Ford. In fact, I got to look this up. I got to make sure I confirm this. But he said that Henry Ford had such what an admiration for George Washington Carver that the automobile factories, instead of calling them factories, he started calling them plants. I couldn't believe I did not know. Did y'all know this? Has anybody ever heard this before? That literally the reason you go to a Ford plant That's what he said. Now, I gotta check on this one. But literally, he said that, yeah, that the reason that they called them Ford plants is because Henry Ford had so much respect for George Washington Carver and his understanding of plants and agriculture. So, so I gotta go look at that. But anyway, long story short, these are some things that I think as a community, I think telling these stories about how great our ancestors were and how much of a sacrifice they made for us will really inspire us to be our absolute best and to realize that being a wealth builder does not make us exceptional. It means we're upholding the standard. That's it. You're being what's exceptional, or not even exceptional. What's out of the ordinary is when you're not a wealth builder, when you aren't achieving financial security, when you don't own the businesses, and when you don't own the land. That's what's out of the ordinary. That's what's weird, right? Because you've been convinced to behave in a way that is not consistent with who the heck you are. You understand? Like we're something better than that. We're not thugs and hoochie mamas and gangsters and whatever this nonsense is. We're so much better than that. So, long story short, what that does is you'll find actually that when a people's self-esteem rises, their standards and expectations rise, and when your expectations and standards rise, then your behavior improves, and then as your behavior, standards, and expectations improve and rise, others start to view you and deal with you in a certain way because they know what will be tolerated and what won't be tolerated. So Black self-confidence and self-esteem is a really important aspect of our wealth building. It's very hard for a person with low financial self-esteem to build wealth and financial security because at the end of the day, they may feel like they don't even deserve it. So, maybe a good exercise we can do before we go is we can just stop for a minute and say, I deserve wealth. I deserve success. I deserve to win. Whatever it is, just say, or you can just put, I deserve it all. How about this? My kids deserve it all. This should belong to us. I think that's a good mantra to end the day with. All right. So a couple things I want to mention really quickly is Larissa Humphrey is going to be teaching on the 11th, starting the 11th, a class on how to pay zero taxes, which you saw her the other day. She's really good. I texted out the link yesterday. I'll put the link back in the chat today. And you can go sign up for that at a discount if you want to. And Larissa's really good. And we always look at the reviews. We look at the data to see which of our teachers are good and which ones we need to send on their way. And Larissa did so well that we invited her back. So there is the link for that if you want to sign up for Larissa's training on how to pay zero taxes. That's very helpful. And then second of all, I want to mention that Dr. Alicia, my wife is a therapist and a full professor of social work. And so she does things like healing haven sessions. And also if you want to see her just directly or work with her, her website is draliciawatkins.com. That's draliciawatkins.com. And some of you may want to talk to me about stuff that you have going on. And David is the guy to talk to if you want to talk to me. And the website is meetdrboyce.com. That's meetdrboyce.com. So feel free to go to meetdrboyce.com. All right, so I'm going to go and just as an FYI, the stock market's on fire. And so your portfolio hopefully is making a lot of money for you. If you missed out on that, then I would encourage you to kind of pay attention because the money is raining out of the sky at this particular moment. So then that's always a good thing. But remember, winter is always coming. As my favorite white characters on Game of Thrones always say, winter is coming. So let's get ready for that too. All right. So have a good day, everybody. God bless you. I will see you all tomorrow morning. Take care, everybody. Bye bye.